Welcome back. Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn now demanding an investigation into allegations a teacher employed by the UN's Relief and Works Agency detained an Israeli hostage taken during the attack on October 7th, holding them in their home's attic for 50 days. Blackburn writes this: the U.S. will not be complicit in propping up Hamas's terrorism, and this report further proves why deep change is necessary within the UNRWA before we even consider providing another dollar to the UN agency. Joining me right now is Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn herself to talk more about this. Senator, thanks very much for being here and for your leadership on all of this. Tell us what's going on.
Yes, what we do know, Maria, is that UNRWA has graduated more than 100 terrorists from their schools. We know that they have hired Hamas-affiliated individuals and that they have used some of their facilities in schools to store weapons and ammunition. We also know that Hamas, over the last decade, has stolen thousands of dollars worth of aid and food and fuel and medical supplies from UNRWA, and they have used it for their own purposes. So let's get to the bottom of this, and I think our UN ambassador should get to the bottom of this. There should be an investigation of what UNRWA is doing with U.S. taxpayer dollars before we send them one penny. And we know that President Trump had stopped our money from going to UNRWA because of their practices. And then President Biden put it back in place and has given them about $1 billion over the last 3 years.
Unbelievable. It's all politics all the time with this White House. Senator, have you heard back? Have you gotten a response?
We have not, and we look forward to getting a response, and we look forward to the report of their investigation as to what happened. Is this a current or former employee? Is it true or not? Is UNRWA still hiring individuals that are affiliated with Hamas?
Wow.
And these are questions that people want to know.
Of course. You also wrote a letter to Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo seeking answers on the administration's decision to remove China's Institute for Forensic Sciences from the department's entity list. We've talked a lot about this entity list on this program. President Biden discussed this with Xi Jinping last month, hoping that China would halt or help to curb the fentanyl coming into the country. Tell us about this and exactly what's going on, because we continue to question some of Joe Biden's move with regard to China.
You're right, we do, because there is a very inconsistent policy around our foreign policy and the relationships with China. Likewise, Maria, there is an inconsistent policy around combating Islamophobia, because you hear one policy in the Middle East, but you have this group, this Chinese forensic science lab, and they were on the entity list in large part because of the genocide that they have been a part of, the genocide against the Uyghur Muslims. So we want to know why they've been removed, why they are not on the entity list, where they have been, and there should be a prohibition around U.S. organizations and companies being in affiliation with this forensic science lab.
Well, I mean, it's the same approach to all of these Chinese companies that are tied to the CCP that are still in indexes and ETFs and even part of the thrift fund, where American investors are buying these companies unwittingly, really funding the expansion of the CCP, our number one adversary. Again, the Biden administration comes into office, first thing they do is cancel the China initiative. Is this all because Joe Biden has accepted money from China?
And you wonder about that. You wonder about the relationship with Hunter Biden. You were just talking with Jody Arrington about how they're looking at this and these relationships and the bank transfers that we have seen. And you mentioned the China initiative. Maria, that is the initiative that we had to investigate Chinese spies that are here in this country. So why would you cancel this? We needed it, just like investors need to know who is on the entity list so they know who not to go to, who not to participate or partner with. And this administration has muddled the entire thing. There is a lack of consistency. Our enemies are not sure they're an enemy. Our friends are not sure they're a friend. And that is where there ought to be a bright line. And people should know that if they're our enemy, we are going to come after them. If they're our friend, we're going to stand with them.
Well,
and you don't
Senator,
have that right now.
Have you had any response from Joe Biden about any of this? I mean, shouldn't the president respond to all of these accusations and attacks and answer straight away why he canceled the China initiative, why he doesn't hold Xi Jinping accountable for anything, including the COVID cover-up, releasing COVID out of a Wuhan lab, a surveillance balloon, traveling our country, years and years of intellectual property theft, bullying our ships and planes in international waters and airspace, backing our adversaries like Russia and Iran. Have you gotten any answer, or is this just a cover-up? Because FBI Director Christopher Wray will testify before your committee today, the Judiciary Committee, this morning. I know you are a member of that committee, and you are going to be among those asking him questions. Are you going to ask him any of these questions if he's covering up Joe Biden crimes?
We would love to know if he's covering up some of Joe Biden's crimes. I also want to know how and what participation the FBI had in covering up these flight logs from Jeffrey Epstein. We would also like to know what they're doing with their investigation into Hunter Biden, how they went about investigating President Trump and pulling information from private individuals that were retweeting a President Trump tweet. We also want to look at what they're doing to investigate Catholics. We hear that the FBI went in and did an interview with the priest, with the choir director, Maria. They are so off the mark. I tell you what they ought to be doing. They ought to be following these terrorists that are coming across our southern border and into our country and rooting them out. They ought to be looking at why you had 2,000 Chinese nationals in the month of October cross that southern border and enter the U.S. Many of them are military-age young men. Did they look at the 100-plus Russians? Are they going after the 35 Pakistanis, the 30 Iranians, all that came in 1 month, October? Yeah. Where is their focus?
Well, what's the answer to any of this, Senator? With all due respect, we ask these questions every single day. And this could not be more serious right now with the aggression coming out of communist China. We're losing our country, is what I hear increasingly from viewers out there today. So what are you going to do about it? People are sick of reports and sick of letters. They want accountability.
You're right. That's right. And that's why we continue to probe and to ask these questions. It's why Republicans are saying you are not going to get a supplemental unless you secure our border. If you want to have a battle over borders, let's secure the U.S. border first before we secure Ukraine's border. And that is where Republicans are on this. It is imperative that we secure the southern border. And Maria, when we pass something that requires them to take this administration, this Biden White House to take an action, they need to take that action. What we see, and you see it, and it is frustrating, they go out here and they just flaunt the law and do whatever they want to do and disregard the House and the Senate, which is the elected branch of our
All right,
government.
Senator. We're going to be watching all of your work and certainly that testimony today from Christopher Wray.
You got
Thanks
it.
very much for previewing
You
that
got
and
it.
giving us a sense of your priorities. Senator Marsha Blackburn with us this morning. We'll be right back.